welcome to Sheeran Guitar Tutorials. My name's David, and in today's lesson, I'll be teaching you how Ed Sheeran plays the live, fingerstyle version of Camera. For this, you won't need a capo, however, you will need each string on your guitar tuned down half a step. An easy way to do that actually is by first putting a capo on the first fret of your guitar. You then use whatever kind of guitar tuner you have to tune each string back down to the note it normally is in standard tuning. And then when you take the capo off, each string on your guitar is now tuned down half a step, and you're ready to play the song. So now that you've done that, let's jump on in. So starting with the chords, the first one you'll need is a C chord. You might also need a C sus2. I say maybe because it's hard to tell what Ed is playing when he plays this song live sometimes. So if you want to use a C chord, use that. If you want to use a C sus2, use that as well. For this tutorial though, I'll mostly be using a normal C chord. Next, you'll need an A minor 7, an F add 9, an F sus2, a G sus4, and then finally, these last two chords are the kind of funky ones that you see Ed Sheeran use when he plays this song live. The first one seems to be an E minor 7, sharp 5, which is fretted with an open, low E string, your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the A string, an open D string, an open G string, and then you just don't play the B or the high E. So the chord should kind of sound like this. And then finally, we have a G7 sus4, which is the same fretting as the previous chord. You now put your index finger on the 1st fret of the low E. Everything else is the same. So the G7 sus4 should sound like this. Alright, so getting into the song now, starting with the intro. Now the number of times you play the intro varies. For the studio version, it's played once, but when Ed plays this song live, he'll play it anywhere from 0 to 2 times. So it's really up to you. But for the TikTok live performance that he did, he played it twice, so that's what I'm showing here. So you're going to start with your C chord, but this could also be a C sus2 chord if you prefer. I say that because it looks like Ed plays a C sus2 sometimes when he plays it live, but it's hard to be sure. So either chord works, so use whatever you like best. I'll be using a C chord in this video though. Okay, so you pluck the A string with your thumb, and then you pluck the D string with your thumb. And you'll want a brief pause in between those two plucks, so it should sound something like this. And just a quick note, that's something that goes for each chord in this song. After the first pluck of every chord, you'll want a brief pause before getting into the other plucks for that chord. Okay, so after those two plucks, you're going to pluck the G string with your index finger, the B string with your middle finger, and then the G string again with your index finger. So those 3 notes would sound like this. And everything we have so far for the C would sound like this. And then you have 2 more plucks, which are plucking the D string again with your thumb, and the G string again with your index. So everything for the C chord would sound like this. After the C, we move to the A minor 7, and the plucking here is exactly the same as the C chord. You're just now fretting an A minor 7. So the A minor 7 should sound like this. And so the C and the A minor 7 together would sound like this. Next up is the E minor 7 sharp 5, and again, it's the same plucking pattern that we just did, but everything is moved up a string. And what I mean by that is your thumb is now plucking the low E and the A strings, your index plucks the D string, and your middle plucks the G string. Other than that, the plucking pattern is exactly the same. So the E minor 7 sharp 5 would sound like this. And so the first 3 chords together would sound like this. And so now the final chord is the G7 sus4, and this is plucked exactly the same as the E minor 7 sharp 5. So the G7 sus4 should sound like this. So everything together, one time through the intro, would sound like this. And the entirety of the intro would sound like this. So now we're into verse 1, and the progression here is played 4 times in total. You start with a C chord, and then have an A minor 7 chord, just like the intro. And because I already covered the details on how to play both of those chords in the intro, I won't go over them here, so refer back to the intro section of this video for the specifics on how to pluck the C and the A minor 7 chords. Next up is what appears to be an F add 9 chord, and I say it like that because it might be an F sus2. Doesn't really matter though, they both sound more or less the same, so use whichever F you like better. I'll be using an F add 9 for verse number 1. So the pattern is pretty similar for the F add 9. You pluck the D string with your thumb, then the G string with your index, the B with your middle, and the high E with your ring finger. So those all together would sound like this. Then you finish the pattern with another pluck on the B with your middle, the G with your index, and the B with your middle again. So the entirety of the F chord would sound like this. You'll also see a note about a pull-off for this F chord, but hold tight, we'll get into that. The last chord in the verse is a G sus4, and the pattern here again is pretty similar to what we went over for the C and A minor 7, but there are a few changes. And those changes are really just your thumb now plucks the low E and the G strings. Your index is still responsible for the G string, and your middle is still responsible for the B string. So the G sus4 plucking would sound like this. So altogether, one time through verse 1 would sound like this. And so the last note I'll mention is back on the F chord. It seems like when Ed plays this live, for the very last time he goes through the progression in verse 1, he does a pull-off on the high E string after he plucks it. A pull-off is just you kind of flicking your finger, in this case your pinky, off the string after you pluck it. And that pull-off would count as the next pluck on the B string, so you wouldn't pluck the B string after the high E string pull-off if you do that. So for the F add 9, the pull-off just sounds like this. And with the rest of the plucking for the F chord, it would sound like this. This is totally optional though, and up to you whether you include it or not. Alright, so the entirety of verse 1 would sound like this. So next up is pre-chorus 1, and you're going to play what I have shown twice, starting with an A minor 7. And I already went over how to pluck the A minor 7 in the intro section of this video, so refer back to that section for those plucking details. Next up would be a G sus4, and refer back to the verse 1 section of this video for those details. Then you finish the progression for the pre-chorus with playing the F sus2 chord twice. Now, even though the F sus2 is a new chord, you play it exactly the same as the F add 9, so refer back to the verse 1 section of this video for those details. The only other note I'll make here is you could play an F add 9 in place of the F sus2. And that's it. So the entirety of pre-chorus 1 sounds like this. Next is chorus 1, and I've broken this up into 2 parts to make it a little bit cleaner to see on the screen. Part 1 is shown right now and is played through 3 times in total. And this is actually the exact same progression as the intro section, so refer back to the intro section of this video for the playing details. But what I'll do is just play the entirety of part 1 of chorus 1 for you. On to part 2 of chorus 1 now, and this is only played once. It starts with your C, then an A minor 7. I've gone over the details on how to play those 2 chords in the intro section, so refer back to that for the details. Next is an F sus2, and then a G sus4. The details of which I've gone over in the pre-chorus 1 section of this video, so refer back to that section for the details. So all of part 2 of chorus 1 would sound like this. And so both parts of chorus 1 together sound like this. Next is break 1, and it's played exactly the same as the intro. You're just playing the progression once instead of twice. So refer back to the intro section of this video for all those details. Next up is verse number 2, and it's pretty much the same as verse number 1. The only differences are the F chord is now an F sus2 instead of an F add 9, although you could use whatever F you want. And you can also do the pull-off we went over in verse 1 on the G sus4 the last time you go through the chord progression. If you don't remember, basically, for the G sus4, right after you do the pluck on the B string with the 3 asterisks, you're going to flick your index finger off that string. And that pull-off will also replace the next pluck that you would do on the G string. So you would skip that next pluck on the G string if you do the pull-off. So if you wanted to include the pull-off, the G sus4 chord, the last time through verse number 2 would sound like this. And again, that's totally optional. It just seems to be what Ed does sometimes when he plays this song live. For all the other details on how to play verse 2, refer back to the verse 1 section of this video. So altogether, verse 2 would sound like this. On to pre-chorus 2 now, and it's played exactly the same as pre-chorus 1, so refer back to that section of this video for those details. On to chorus 2 now, and both parts 1 and 2 are played exactly the same as parts 1 and 2 of chorus 1, so refer back to those sections for the details. Next up is the bridge, and I have it broken into 2 parts. Part 1 is actually the same as the pre-choruses, but you just play the progression shown once, so refer back to the pre-chorus 1 section of this video for the details. Next is part 2 of the bridge, and it's just the F sus2 chord played twice, and then the G sus4 chord played twice. So refer back to the verse 1 section of this video for those playing details, but altogether the bridge sounds like this. Next is break number 2, and it's played exactly the same as the intro, you're just playing the progression once. So refer back to the intro section of this video for the details. And then finally, we're at the last part of the song, chorus 3. And both parts 1 and 2 of chorus 3 are played exactly the same as parts 1 and 2 of the other choruses, so refer back to those sections for the details. And so that's the entirety of the song. So what I'll do now is do a full playthrough of the song to give you something to practice and play along to. Enjoy. And so that's the entirety of the lesson. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to give the video a like and leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on all those notifications so you don't miss any future tutorials. If you want more tutorials covering songs from Play, be sure to click the card on the screen now to jump to all my other Ed Sheeran lessons. And finally, be sure to be on the lookout for many more Play tutorials to come in the near future. Thank you.